Welcome to this presentation developed by Mara Briere, a certified family life educator and founder of Grow a Strong Family. A certified family life educator is a professional with expertise in education and prevention on lifespan issues relevant to families, including family systems and the changes they go through when, for example, families are uprooted by chronic illness. When my daughter was diagnosed with bipolar I, I sought information and resources for our family. In spite of my being a professional, I was now in need of services myself. What I discovered was that once our loved ones are adults, there is little to no support or services for family members. So I founded Grow a Strong Family to fill this void. Grow a Strong Family provides customized family life education services to families uprooted by mental illness. We help families replant themselves. And Grow a Strong Family does this through our comprehensive menu of evidence-informed services. And these include the only fee-for-service program we have, which is coaching, which is customized to the particular needs of each family that chooses this particular service. We offer the skill-based seminars and webinars. We have a support group that meets twice a month, and it's called Replanting Lives, Uprooted by Mental Illness. My dog and I are a pet therapy pair. We've been certified through Dog Bones Therapy of Massachusetts, and we offer services that are voluntary on our part. And we've been doing this for 6 years. We have a social media presence on Facebook, both a public page and a private page. We maintain and update our website, so please visit and visit often because I'm always updating our free educational materials, resources, blogs, and adding to the basic body of knowledge that family members need in order to navigate the often confusing systems having to do with the mental health of our loved ones. We also collaborate with community agencies. We have been blessed to receive a couple of grants that have enabled us to put forth this presentation. One is through Shana 15 and the other is through the Concord Carlisle Community Chest. I call this presentation Before Boundaries, Silent Agreements, because what we found is that very often when we've done work with families and we say, well, you have to set limits and you have to establish boundaries, we found that family members are often stuck and they're not even very clear as to what is holding them back. And as we dig deeper, we find that there are certain assumptions that family members make that hold us back because we don't challenge them. As one family member shared at one of our meetings recently, she said, when I was growing up, there were a great many expectations that were agreed upon, although never spoken of. Some are classic, like as a child, I was expected to do well in school and clean up after myself, do my chores and the like. I expected my parents to provide nurturing, housing, clothes, food, and basic necessities. These were not talked about, they were just understood. These are silent agreements. However, there were other silent agreements with their set of expectations that were not discussed then or now. These included never discussing my grandmother's manic depressive illness, even though we, my sister and I, were responsible for her care. My grandfather's recovery from alcoholism, even though he went to meetings almost every night and held court in our house every Sunday. My mother's Crohn's disease, even though it meant she was hospitalized frequently. My stepfather's depression, even when he did not get out of bed for days on end. The big silent agreement was that my sister and I would take care of the unwell adults and not complain about it or expect that our emotional needs would be met. In the family I created as an adult, these agreements could have continued, except that I learned to challenge them. And that is what today's webinar is going to be looking at. Silent agreements, the what, the how, the why, and how to manage them more effectively. How families deal with mental illness if it's not in the best interest of all its members, then it is not the best solution. And that's the problem with silent agreements, is that if we agree that there is a family member who is in great need, typically families will put all of their time and energy and resources into focusing on the unwell family member or the needy family member. And what happens is the family becomes very lopsided. Because if all of the attention is on one aspect or one person in the family, that means that the rest of the family is not getting their needs met in an appropriate way. The family becomes destabilized, and that is not in anybody's best interests. What are silent agreements? As you can see in the picture, silent agreements are the big elephant in the room. Those are the agreements, those are the things that families do not talk about. Very interestingly, that very often when couples are contemplating marriage, for example, they may have to do premarital counseling. And the purpose of premarital counseling is to start to dig at what some of these silent agreements are that each of us brings with us to this potentially committed relationship. We have certain expectations and certain ideas that we generally assume the other person will go along with, and the premarital counseling is intended to kind of knock that down so that we both have this discussion about what our expectations are so that we can see what's realistic, what's not realistic, and come to a place of agreement. And so silent agreements is basically saying, what are the things that we haven't talked about that are influencing us in a day-to-day manner? Generally, these are family rules, roles, and expectations. Few families engage in an open dialogue about what the family rules are, never mind what the roles and the expectations are. These are often assumed from societal designations. For example, women will do certain things, men will do certain things, children will do certain things. So even the oldest, the middle, the youngest will have certain assigned roles. Family preferences, which are often multi-generational. Well, this is what my grandfather and great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather or whatever. And the unspoken rules that are guiding the family interactions. That's what silent agreements are. Roles do play an important part in healthy family functioning. And we know that the more clear each family member is about their roles and how they fit in the family and what is expected of them, the fewer silent agreements there are, the more likely that the family will be able to manage any crisis that comes its way or anything that is unforeseen, because there is a sense within the family that they know what to do and what is expected of them. What are the silent agreements? Well, for example, we do expect that when we're in a family that we're going to get our basic physiological needs met, that there's going to be enough food and water, place to sleep, a place to go to the bathroom. We know we have this agreement about what is safety going to look like? How is it going to feel? We have this sense that we should be able to take care of our children and take care of each other. We have an agreement about what does friendship look like and love, even sexual intimacy, what is acceptable and what is not. There are silent agreements around self-esteem and confidence, how we raise people up, what kind of experiences we give them. And finally, there are silent agreements about what does self-actualization look like, when is it selfish, when is it narcissistic, when is it healthy, when is it entitled. So we actually have a pyramid, if you will, and here we're using Maslow's, to indicate what silent agreements are in different areas and how they affect us. Voice is not given to needs, wants, or desires of family members. In a nutshell, that's what silent agreements are. When we don't give a voice, or if somebody starts to exercise their voice and they're put down because it's in violation or a challenge to the silent agreements that are guiding the family. As Kern points out, these are the unspoken rules of our relationships that grow from the topics we don't talk about. For example, the needs, wishes, and expectations that we don't share, but that holds others accountable anyway. And what these can look like is, for example, if a parent has a mental illness, for example, sometimes there is the sense that the children should be paying attention and figuring out how to meet the parents' needs in order for them to be safe. While this is true in too many families, it is also not a healthy way for the family to operate. Of course, we would say the healthy way for the family to operate would be for the adults to become stable and to do whatever they needed to do to stabilize and have some control over their symptoms. So symptom management is something that's important. The whole family can have an understanding and support this individual, the parent. However, they are not expected to fix it or to act in fear from it. Silent agreements are not just about communicating poorly in your relationships. They are also, a silent agreement is a situation where you have consciously or unconsciously agreed to something with another person without discussing it at all. And very often in families, when an adult family member has an illness, whether it's a mental illness or a physical illness, there are a lot of unspoken agreements that are made, especially vis-a-vis the roles that children are supposed to play. I'm sure that you have heard the expression of parentified children, where children actually assume the roles that the adults in their lives are supposed to be assuming. And these are often multi-generational, and they tend to go because the adults are not well, so the children take care of them. And then those children grow up and become adults, and they become unwell, and their children are supposed to take care of them until somebody in the family can challenge this and needs to challenge this, because it is not a healthy way to function when you consider that you're talking about children whose needs aren't going to be met, which means they're not going to meet their developmental milestones. If they do not meet their developmental milestones, then how the heck are they ever going to be able to understand and meet the needs of their own children when they have them? Silent agreements are negative beliefs and expectations. This is where the expectations are sent out there. You won't stress your sister out because you know how fragile she is, when a normal part of sibling relationships includes a certain amount of argument, if you will, and disagreement. That's a typical part of how family members function and how they learn how to resolve differences. If that is taken away because your sister is so fragile, then there is, again, that lopsided development in the family, and skills that need to be taught aren't being taught. Silent agreements are when your thoughts go to the shoulds, oughts, musts, and have-tos. And whenever you hear those words, whether it was through self-talk or somebody else, those are red flags. That's when you're identifying the silent agreements that may or may not be healthy for you or anyone else. There are some silent agreements that are fine. Do we really need to talk about what the roles and responsibilities are of parents to children? Probably not. But we might need to be talking about the roles when parents abdicate them, or when children act like entitled little bullies and need to have a firmer hand put on them. Those are the times that we need to start looking at, maybe we need to be doing something different, and what is that going to look and feel like? What are the downfalls of challenging silent agreements? Because there are downfalls. One of the downfalls, of course, is resistance. The family has operated this way for a very long time, and change is always difficult, or often difficult. So resistance is often how silent agreements, when they're exposed, are met. There could be withdrawal. The family might withdraw from somebody. I've spoken to many individuals who were the first members of their original families to become in a program of recovery, whether from substance use or mental illness, and the family has withdrawn from them because their very lifestyle is challenging how the family has agreed to operate. There could be shaming. Oh, you think you're better than everybody else. You don't drink anymore, or you're taking your medication. There could be shunning. There could be resentment. There could be uneven burdens. Well, you know how it's done, so you deal with this person and let us know how it's working out for you. There could be an inability to manage crises because when one family member challenges how the family is operating, the family becomes a little off kilter, even more than it is already. And that can make it even more difficult to manage crises. And very often when families have very long-term and chronic silent agreements, they're probably not very good at solving problems, because if they could solve the problems, they would have come up with a better functioning system. The benefits of challenging them, you get choice. You get to choose whether to respond or react. You get to decide, how am I going to deal with the situation? Do I need to say something? Maybe I don't need to say something. How do I want to conduct myself? You become the captain of your own boat. Once you become aware of the silent agreements, that's really a wonderful and liberating moment in your life, because when you can choose what you want to do, you are in charge. Even if you decide to keep the silent agreements, being aware that they exist still puts you in the position of making decisions about how you want to manage them and how far you want to go or not go. Other benefits, we say AAA, which is the first step is awareness. Then you accept that this is how the family operates, and then you can take action or not. Not taking action is a form of action. Not taking action is a way of taking action. It's a way of saying, this is too big for me to challenge alone. But I can do it in small ways. I can do it by taking better care of myself. I can do it by talking to the providers that are involved in my loved one's care. I can do it by creating more balance in this family by not being willing to accept behavior that is unacceptable. I can change my approach, even if I can't change the whole culture of the family. And that, in and of itself, is very powerful. What are some effective strategies for challenging silent agreements? In a book called Hidden Victims, Hidden Healers by Johnson, she says, let's look at what your expectations are of yourself and others and make a commitment to challenge any negative expectations. By making this commitment, what you are not doing is you are not being like a bull in a china shop. Instead, what you are doing is you are saying, I am going to become aware so that I can make better decisions that are healthier for me. And for this, you ask yourself some questions. So you say, what do others expect of me in relation to my family member with mental illness? Sometimes this is the very first time we are even examining this. So it's a very good question to ask yourself. What are some shared beliefs within my family about a loved one with mental illness? What do I believe is the cause of mental illness? How does this affect how I interact with my family, and how does it affect the plans I make for our future? What do I believe would help my family member with mental illness get well? At this time, what is my biggest fear? And for each answer, ask why. So, for example, let's say, what do others expect of me in relation to my family member with mental illness? If your family members expect that you are going to make sure that they're safe, make sure that they're comfortable, you're going to pay their bills, you're going to manage their care, that may or may not be reasonable or realistic based on who you are and what is going on in your life. Too often, because the onset of serious mental illness is during the transition age years of 15 to 25, very often siblings and other family members are getting older, maybe have their own families, and they may not have the time, the energy, or the resources to take care of a loved one with a mental illness. So it's important to look at this question. What do they expect of me in relation to my family member? And then when you say they expect me to be able to provide them all this care because I'm in the field and this is what I do, then you can say, well, why Why do I have to do that? And then let's say, what are some shared beliefs within my family about our loved one with mental illness? Very often there's a sense of compassion. There might be a sense of pity. There might be some anger. Well, if they didn't drink, then they wouldn't have these other issues to go along with their bipolar. Or if they took their medication, they would be high-functioning members of society. Why would you think that was true? Do you have any evidence to support that? Where in your family do you think this idea was first generated? Do you have other family members who have had mental illnesses who, with medication, became high-functioning members of society? You may, but you may not. It's still worth looking at. What do I believe is the cause of mental illness? This is crucial because very many individuals still don't seem to realize that mental illness is a biological disorder of the brain. It has to do with chemistry. They still think it's a moral failing, or they think if only you lived your life better. So you're still coming back to, do you think that the person has control over what is happening to them or not? And how you look at it has a big influence on how this affects how you interact both with your own family and how you're making plans for the future. Because very often mental illnesses are genetic in origin or have a genetic component which can be triggered through environment. And this often influences where we live, how we live, the kind of choices that we make. So what you believe is very important. What do I believe would help my family members with mental illness get well? This is crucial because this is where you have hope or not. And what is my biggest fear? This one's a very interesting one. For most individuals that I speak to, the biggest fear is that our loved ones will kill themselves. And that's because once they kill themselves, of course, there's no help. So very often in the work that I do, we will explore this because we cannot allow that fear to manipulate how we interact with our loved ones. What does this look like? What silent agreements do you have with your family member? And how do these agreements affect you? What are your feelings, goals, and relationships like? This is wonderful stuff. The work by Byron Katie is designed to challenge your beliefs so that you can make better decisions about what you think and how you think. So when you find yourself starting to challenge yourself, this is another wonderful tool to support the material that we previously discussed. And she starts with 4 simple questions. Whatever it is that you're saying, that you're looking at, that you're thinking, the first thing to do is to answer, is it true? If it is true, go on to the next question. If it's not true, move to question 3. So let's say your biggest fear is that your loved one will kill herself. Is it true? Yes or no? Can you absolutely know that it is true? Yes or no? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Let's say we believe that our loved one will kill herself. How do you react? What happens? Explore that. This is an opportunity to examine for yourself a vulnerability that you have that holds you back from functioning in an honest way towards your loved one. And who would you be without that thought? Picture yourself without that thought. So in my case, I think I'll play that out for you, and I'll play that out for you in the following way. I'm going to take the worst-case scenario because this is the one that seems to be the hottest one for so many of the families I work with, and that is they have loved ones who have threatened suicide, and many who have tried it several times unsuccessfully. So is it true? Yes, it is true that I'm afraid that they're going to kill themselves. Can you absolutely know that it is true? Yes, because they have had serious tries in the past, and it was only through good luck, fortune, the grace of God that they were not successful. So how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? I get scared. I get sad. I get grief-stricken. I feel helpless. I feel powerless. I feel out of sorts. And who would you be without that sort? I feel I would be more accepting that I can't fix it, that I can't cure it, that I can't control it. I can only offer the best opportunity for wellness to my loved one that I can offer. Do you see how it works? By facing the fear and working it through, you then can explore what would it be like to just spend time with somebody that you care about as you can. One of the interesting stories that Dr. Alexander Amador talks about in his book, I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, about his schizophrenic brother, he opens it with how much he learned from his brother, and then his brother passed away. And then you read the book, and at the very end you find out that his brother did not die from his illness. He was killed by a bus, helping a woman. And it really was a moment to say, our loved ones may well be suicidal, but they can also get killed by crossing the street. They could get killed by getting the flu. Any of us could be gone at any time. If we value our loved ones, value them in the moment without fear. And that is why I chose that as an example for how the work by Byron Katie works. React? No. Respond? Yes. What do silent agreements have to do with boundaries? Good question. When you are aware of what the silent agreements are, you respond instead of react. That means that you can set clear, firm boundaries. You don't automatically react to everyone's thoughts and feelings. You're more apt to tolerate other people's opinions and not become defensive when you disagree. You recognize that your reaction is your responsibility. You adopt a healthy skepticism regarding what others say about you, good or bad, and your self-esteem doesn't rise and fall as a result. You say no, and you accept hearing no. What is so beautiful about this is that when you respond instead of react, and you are in charge of you, you also release your loved ones, recognizing that, in fact, they are in charge of themselves, too. And that's very liberating and also very kind, loving, and generous to letting them have their lives. Chances are, when they don't have to fight with you for themselves, they have the option also to make better decisions. So they can treat you better and they can treat themselves better. Boundaries are the guidelines we establish for ourselves and others, how we expect to be treated. They empower everybody. They also imply consequences when they're not respected. I'll very often say when my loved ones are particularly in a manic mood and they are in that irritable, rageful place, I often will say nothing, and then I will say, I'll talk to you when you're calm, and leave and make myself unavailable. I recognize that they're triggered, and this is part of their illness, but it doesn't mean that I have to hang in there and be abused. I can very kindly, lovingly, gently, and very firmly say, I don't let anybody talk to me like that. When you're calm, I'm happy to talk to you, and make myself unavailable until they're calm. The 7 C's. I was looking for a picture of oceans, but I couldn't find one. So the 7 C's are beautiful words to say to yourself. They're a good mantra. I didn't cause it. I can't control it. I can't cure it, but I can take care of myself by communicating my feelings, making good choices, and celebrating myself. And when you do that, what you're really doing is you're modeling for everybody in your family how to take good, loving care of themselves, too, and how to operate when the family has a chronic illness that needs to be addressed, but not at the cost of everybody else in the family. In this webinar, we've discussed silent agreements, the what, the how, the why, and how to challenge them. And there's a variety of resources that are available to you here at the end of this presentation, as well as on the website where you found this webinar. It would probably have been helpful, and I should have said this at the beginning, and I apologize, but to have printed out for yourself the handout for the webinar so that you could take notes. I'll try to remember that for the next time. And don't forget that when your best laid plans fail, stick to your normal routines as much as you can. Eat and drink in moderation. Plan on exercise. Build in nature time. Make sure you have backup plans and backup plans of your backup plans. Keep music that you love on hand and listen to it when you need to. Prioritize your time, activities, and commitments to do what you want to and what you can do. And always take good, loving care of yourself. For more information on Grow a Strong Family, visit us online at growastrongfamily.org or email us at gasfinc@outlook.com, or you can call us. As always, take what you like and leave the rest. We are not responsible for how the content or the presentation is used, and we do appreciate that you gave us your time for this presentation, and we want to thank you for joining us. We hope that you come and visit us often when we have other presentations. Thank you.